our speakers introduce themselves.
Hello, maybe I should start. I'm Stephan. So I'm CTO for a company called Easy Fairs. We organize about 200 trade shows a year. We also manage exhibition venues, and I'm responsible in the company for everything related to technology and digital. And I'm very passionate about what's happening now, and very hopeful for the future.
Stuart.
Hello, my name's Stuart Ledden. I'm the Group Marketing Director for Tarsus. We organise around 160 trade exhibitions and conferences around the world. And I'm also responsible for the pivoting of our business into digital and virtual events.
And hi, everybody. My name is Matthias Tesi Baur. I'm the CEO of MBB Consulting Group, and I'm also the founder, and we are running the Exhibition Think Tank Club. Welcome, everybody.
Excellent. So I didn't really talk about what Expo Platform does. We are a technology company. So what we have here in this panel is essentially a collection of three sides of the industry, let's say, two very different organizers in the exhibition world, one technology supplier within myself, and then Tesi as a consultant who has a global overview from all sides a little bit. So there will be two really points that we want to discuss. The first point is, of course, how has our adaptation to this new format of online, because many events are unable to happen physically, at the moment. How have we done in this? And have we been able to figure out a format that is compelling, specifically for our exhibitors, who are the main revenue generators for exhibitions? And what sort of things can we do to make sure that they get more value out of this? And I think one of the key things that we're sort of in the process of finding out is that perhaps we haven't yet found the right formats, and we haven't done all our homework in making sure that exhibitors specifically are getting value from the event. So before we can attract sponsorship and generate revenue, additional revenue for them, and think about that side, we really need to dig down and think about how do we make sure that what they walk away with from the exhibition is valuable and reflects what they've invested, right? So I guess the floor is open for this discussion. Which I think is critical, because we cannot generate revenue and we cannot hope to have anyone come back if we don't demonstrate that we're able to deliver something, right?
Indeed.
Perfect.
Do you want me to start, or?
Yeah,
I'm happy to go. Everybody says, yeah, but what about the revenues? How can we make this profitable? And everybody's looking at making profit short term. And even while the crisis is still lasting, I always tell people, okay, look, maybe profit is not the most. I know we all need cash, to be honest. Every company in the industry sector needs cash at the moment. But maybe serving the communities and giving them a compelling offer and a good experience is the most important. I've recently discussed with two different companies, one consulting company and one more into the survey area. And they both made surveys about online trade shows and the feedback of exhibitors. And for both of them, the result was really, really bad, especially online trade shows, which are actually the trade show format, which is more of a transactional format. Exhibitors who have participated to them in the past few months, most of the exhibitors have a bad feedback about this. So I think we need to first fix that, and then we can think about making money with it. But I'm not super positive about the experience we're giving our customers at the moment. To be honest with you, we're doing our best, and sometimes it's quite good, but it's never like, wow, super compelling, and that's the future. I still haven't seen a trade show doing that online in a very good way.
And I guess a question to you, Stuart, maybe is, do we think why is that happening at the moment? Do we think it's because we're still trying to kind of experiment and figure out what actually works, or is it experience and that's the only thing we're missing, or have we got something fundamentally wrong, or are there other factors that come into it as well?
I think it's a little bit.
Stuart, yeah, I think it's a, thanks. I think it's a little bit of all of those. So picking up on what Stephan was saying, I think the easiest starting point, and I think a lot of us have done this, is to more or less replicate the lived physical event experience in a digital world. And I think we have learned, I think that's not a bad place to start and to test, but I think we've quickly learned that it doesn't work like that. It's not as simple as that. All of the secondary benefits, all of the elements that go into making a live physical event are not necessarily in place within the digital in the digital environment. It's a much more pared down, it's a much more focused, it's a much more value driven experience. And I think perhaps where we need to improve is finding different formats, different experiences that deliver against what our customers and our attendees are looking to achieve.
Yeah,
I think, I was about to say something very similar. I think Stephan is right. And I think it would be very surprising, actually, if we are world class now. Before the crisis, the industry was always a little bit behind when it came to digital. We always said there is nothing over face-to-face. Face-to-face can't be replaced. We have pushed into the situation where we need to experiment with digital by the crisis. So we can't be from we are running behind to world class in 2 to 3 months. I see the big danger as we are not providing a great experience to exhibitors, and exhibitors are saying they don't like virtual shows. I see the big danger is that we do the false assumption out of it, that we are saying, okay, virtual shows are not working, so therefore let's ignore them again. I think we need to more say is, okay, how can we make it better, and how can we go through this experimental phase as quickly as possible, that we really come to the point when we provide value. And providing value, it's not just a webinar, it's not just a panel discussion, it's not just discussing a broad topic, how is the industry doing in the crisis and so on. I think we need to go through a strategic phase where we say, what are actually the exhibitor motivations? They want to have leads, they want to have visibility, and they want to do customer relation management. And they want to do that in the most targeted way possible. So how do we need to assemble an online experience that is serving either one or more than one of these motivations? And then very often the wow factor doesn't come in because it's a fancy online tool or it's a great background picture or whatever. The wow factor comes in through targeted content. So we need to bring down the targeted content and give it to the right target group. And then we will have the wow factor. And when we have that, money will follow.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think that's an extremely good point. And I think one of the other points that follows on from that is that we have been significantly under utilizing, and it was maybe more difficult to achieve in the physical format, is actually this link between different types of content and following through on the personalization aspect. And how do you link a session with certain subject areas effectively with an exhibitor who is doing things that are in that direction or whatever, but not in a way that is annoying and you're just handing out bags of goodies or something like that, or you're just putting their logo up, but actually something relevant. Because that's a much more powerful message, and that's a much more the exhibitor or sponsor is much more likely to get real value out of it than just by randomly displaying an ad.
Picking up on something that Tesi said there about the motivations being more single-minded, and I think it is less about what the application is. It's less about having a banner or having a virtual presence. It's more about what is that delivering for the exhibitor, and starting to look at there are multiple ways that we can meet those exhibitors' motivations and their objectives. So it might be about lead generation, it might be about customer relationship management, as Tesi said there. It could be a myriad of these different objectives, and we need to look at what we are building in order to deliver against our customers' core objectives, and be very single-minded about it.
and think about the audience as well. I would say it's when we need to think about more how can we serve the exhibitor motivation, how we get more targeted. We need to do the same exactly when it comes to the audience. At the moment, we are putting out the registration, say, hey, our webinar is online. Hopefully, as many people as possible register. And the KPI is for this has registered 100 people, for that has registered 200 people. But I think it's not about that number. It's really that we put much more effort in that maybe only 40, 50, 60 people register, but these are really the target groups our exhibitors want to see. So like we are thinking about the audience at a trade show, we need to set up our online formats having the audience much more in mind than we do in the last 3-4 months.
Yeah, but I would also, yeah.
One thing we have to consider as well is can we have the same event mission online that we had live? Was our event live mostly targeted at, I would say, we call it internally a transactional event, or is it more of an educational event? We see that online works very well for educational and inspirational events. This is where you get those wow events that you see where you have great speakers, etc., etc. But it's much more difficult for everything which is transactional. And whenever we try to do something like that, and it's true for every organizer I've discussed with, it's very difficult to get people to do business or even get leads online. They get much fewer leads than they do live. So maybe we're looking at the wrong audience also at the moment. Everybody is concentrating on the exhibitors and making money with these events through the exhibitors. But maybe online doesn't work that well for a model where your main source of revenue is your exhibitors. What about the audience? Can you provide better content and then get the audience to pay to see the content? And it's an aspect that very few people are considering actually.
Yeah. I think there's actually one change in our thinking we need to consider here is because what you just said is I think we totally need to have, as we said, we need to have the exhibitor in our mind and we need to have the audience in our mind. But it's embedded in our thinking because we are event people. It's embedded in our thinking that one event generates this lead for you, or one event gives you the visibility. It was always our show, yeah. It was our whole processes, our work, our business is concentrating on this one event. So consequently, we also try to do something that one online event is generating this lead, or one online event is generating this visibility. But that's a change of thinking because it's not one online event anymore. It's a journey of events. It's a series of events. So we maybe need to learn to set up online events where this one event is not solving all problems, but this one event is a step on a journey for our exhibitors to generate leads or to get more attention in the industry. And when we see it more as a series of events, I think then we have a different way of thinking than we had before. But I think this is something we need to learn.
Completely. Sorry, go on, Stephan.
Sorry, just one word. The good news is that now, especially if we look at what's happening, we are not limited to those 1, 2, or 3 days of events. We can extend that journey the whole year. We're not limited by time and even geography anymore.
But I think we have to be careful about extending it into 1 year, which is probably what you were going to say, Stuart.
No, actually, I was going to say, again, just expanding on from what Stephan said there, it's not about limited to geography or time, but also to format as well. So if we're not trying to create one online event that is doing everything, but we create a series of multiple events that do different things. So some might be about delivering education sessions, some might be about finding and selecting products. A different one might be around the networking and meeting generation, or whatever best meets our customers' objectives. But I think that's for me is the change, is moving away from a single event that happens in a single place across a period of time that does all of these things for a wide range of exhibitors and attendees, to perhaps as Tesi said, a longer tail, almost a broader spectrum of offerings.
Yeah, and that brings us to some really interesting points, I think, in terms of monetization. This longer tail is probably a subject we'll discuss in a moment more in depth, that allows more monetization opportunities than the past. But I also wanted to add to a couple of the points that were raised here. So one was about the events becoming smaller. Well, I think that is definitely one strategy that is certainly valid, having an event that's much more focused, and instead of having 2,000 people, you have 200. But actually, I think one of the tricks that we're missing is that what allows us to do, what technology now allows us to do, is to actually create an event that still has 2,000 people, but actually each 200 have their own experience in many ways. So while you can bring everyone under the same umbrella, but still effectively have a separate experience for each one of those groups, and have them be targeted and meet, or drive them to meet with the right people and the right sponsors or exhibitors that get value from that. So I think that in a physical event, this is one of the big differences for me anyway. In a physical event, if you go to an event that covers 10 sectors and you have a crowd walking, let's imagine that you have an even spread across those 10 sectors, so 1/10 of the visitors for each sector. As an exhibitor in a hallway, right, your chances of pulling out the right person from the right industry are 1/10 at best, right? This is roughly the idea. Whereas online, that's not true. Out of 2,000 people who are there, because the content you can provide can be much more targeted, and the path by which they flow to your booth can be very personalized, that's no longer true. You can actually have a much, much, much higher rate of those who land on your, let's call your profile your booth, right? Those who land on your profile can be, the chances of them being interested should, if things are set up correctly, be much higher than in the past, somebody wandering by or even stopping by to gaze at your logo or gaze at your products or whatever. That was random. We actually now have much more control over that in many ways.
Yeah, and so even if you say we make a show not for 2,000 people but 200 people, we need to go to these segments of one, as the marketing people call them, and everybody should feel like the show was actually made for them, exactly for their needs.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult thing.
And I think the other point to lead on from that is that if we're talking about how, well, let's say that an exhibitor has gone to your online event or physical event, it doesn't matter. In the physical world, I think we were very complacent about working on this, but we need to prove to the exhibitors that this form or any format, and your trade show in general, has merit and brings something back objectively to them. So I think there is a joint responsibility. The provider, on the one hand, must provide tools to be able to allow the organizer at the very least, but probably also the exhibitor, to analyze and to kind of generate their own metrics. Where did we get what we wanted from this event? Because what is very important is to go back to the exhibitor and to say, hey, objectively, you had a good event. Here are the people who stopped by your booth, who you had an opportunity to chat with, and even you had these meetings, that took place, and I know these are high-value buyers for you. This was something that was very difficult to do on a show space, or much more difficult to do, let's say, on the real show space. But now I think we kind of have a responsibility to do this, because if you want the exhibitor to come back, right, you must be able to tell them that, or to demonstrate to them, not just in words, but in numbers, probably at this point, that they are getting something back.
Yes, indeed. And we have many more opportunities to do it. Yeah, we have many more opportunities to do it that we used in the past. Of course, everything is much more measurable, but I'm totally in line with you when you say we've been complacent with that in the past. We've been used to just put all the ingredients in a big pot and wait for the magic to happen and business to happen. We put everyone in a big exhibition hall, we lock them down there for one day, and we just hope, that the right atom hits the other right atoms and that the explosion happens in the accelerator. It doesn't work like that with online anymore, unfortunately.
I mean, we've been an exhibitor many times and at many different events, including Eventec Live, right? One particular story, not about Eventec Live, but about another event that has been approaching us for quite a number of times. And the story is that they would come and they would say, hey, look at the breakdown of the visitors that we have. Look at these so many of them are in your right from your industry. You should come and participate in our show. And the main question I would ask is, well, what's the breakdown? How do you know that they could be from the right company, but they could be doing something completely different, And it turns out that when I asked for the breakdown of, well, who are they? What do they actually do in these companies? They have nothing to do with technology, where I'm coming from. And this was not information that was readily available. In fact, I had to dig deep to be able to get this kind of stuff. So this is, I think this is one of the things that we can no longer do, right? We can no longer go to the exhibitors and say, hey, look at this audience we have. We have 5,000 people from your industry. They're all going to be flooding to your booth. We can't do this because now when we show them the numbers, the promise and what they get will objectively not match up. So we can't do this anymore. I guess is
which comes back to the point that we need to create journeys, that we need to create a journey where online have a couple of steps and the live event is a step on the journey. And then when we talk about monetization, that is the monetization then could be, or the value which we get in return for the monetization could be all steps combined, where we say we have a very targeted online event. And I think to monetize it, we need to add the things we already know that work. We need to add urgency to it. We need to add exclusivity to our online events. And we need to create a kind of a fear of missing out. So instead of having, like you said, Mykyta, instead of having 500 exhibitors saying, hey, this online event is targeted to that specific segment. We have 20 exhibitors in that segment, but we do an online session only for 5 exhibitors. And for the 5 is the best product. Then you're already creating a kind of an exclusivity to your online event, and you already create a kind of an urgency to your online event. And then we come to a point where money will follow indeed, when we use these type of techniques to create our online events.
Mm-hmm. And not the other way around.
I think, exactly. Precisely. I agree with it completely. And I think because monetization is probably a subject we should have shifted onto early, but I think we touched on it a few times while we were talking. I guess to stress the point is that until we understand what we are selling and how we get the exhibitors to come back, we cannot monetize properly. But let's imagine that we've learned and we know what we need to do, and we have some ideas we want to try. How can we actually monetize things, right? Of course, there's the classic things that we've been doing anyway, which is selling stands. Before it was selling space, I think now we shifted a little bit into selling participation as one change. Not the big change for some of us, but a very significant change in the mentality, I think. But what are some of the other things that we can monetize? I think is a question that's worth discussing. And what actually has changed, because the model of monetizing is now actually changing to we have a different set of tools that are available to us to monetize. So what are some of the things that you think are monetizable? So do you want to start?
Sorry, who do you ask?
I said Stuart. Okay. Anyway.
Well, I think for me, I think to be honest, I think you summed it up neatly there when you said we sell space, which is what we do. We might turn that or present that in a different way or communicate that slightly different. But I think we have been stuck in this model of selling square meters for a long, long time. I think where we need to start looking around is what are the opportunities that we're actually selling, and where are those meeting our customers' objectives? So that switch to selling lead generation packages or education packages or brand awareness packages, whatever it might be that meets our customers' objectives, and creating revenue streams around multi-touch points across. It might be across different events, or it might be across different formats, different times, that actually feed into what our customers are actually looking for, whether that is generating a certain number of leads or some degree of exposure. And once we get to looking at what we offer in those kind of terms, coming back to earlier point around the analytics that we are generated and that we can generate through digital platforms, that then becomes an element of new monetization, where you're starting to go, these are the objectives we set out to achieve, and how well have we done that, and that then drives a revenue strategy around the actual value that we are generating for our customers. Because I think that's where Tesi was going earlier around creating urgency and this fear of missing out. What we're really doing there is creating value, and once we create value, then it becomes easier. I was going to say easy to monetize, but it becomes easier to monetize.
Mm-hmm. And I totally agree with you. We really have to shift our aim in terms of generating revenue. And you may have heard me make that analogy before, but it's something I saw in the telecom industry 20 years ago because I was there. It's when internet started to arrive in the mainstream. Telecom company completely missed the point of what revenue was generated by that new medium. And they thought that connecting people to the internet would be the way to make money, but the actual money was in the intelligence, and it went to the Googles and the Amazons of this world. And we need not to miss that change of direction.
Yeah.
And that's not because of COVID. COVID is just accelerating that. But we need to understand that the telecom operator 20 years ago, we say they became the dumb pipe. Just, letting the data go through and not having any knowledge about what's going through, where the real value is. And I always urge organizers not to become the dumb square meters. But we say where you sell the square meters, and then you have no idea of what's happening on the stand, where the real value is. Because those people understand, and no, it's of course made much worse by COVID, but the people understand they don't care about square meters. They don't want square meters. They want leads and they want business. And this is what we have to monetize. And the people who come to the event or participate to the event, they want to see, we call it at Easy Fairs, we have a motto is visit the future. They want to see the future of their work, company, home, whatever. And they don't want to see square meters. That's not what interests them. So we really have to monetize these aspects of inspiration / education on one side and monetize the leads on the other side. And I see more and more discussion about what if we were selling just leads instead of square meters, and we pay by the leads. That's a little bit far-fetched, but okay, a lot of people are discussing it at the moment.
But that's a model that's not new. The pay-per-lead model is obviously something that's been around in search engines and in marketing for a very long time. And exhibitors who are exhibiting at our shows are very comfortable with that model in they know that is heavily utilized, happy to pay per click, right? So I think it's not a model without merit.
And they make a lot of money with it as well. I think how Stephan just described it is a very nice way to describe it, that we should not become the dumb square meter. And I think that brings us a little bit to the point what is blocking us, because Mykyta, you said, is to pay by leads, to pay by clicks and so on. These are not things that have been invented yesterday. They are around since 15 years easily. And I think everybody who listened to this webinar has theoretically all ingredients to make money with online events in future. Yeah? You need to understand it as a journey. You need urgency. You need to add urgency and value to it. And then you are much easier way to monetize it. But I think there is still blocking factors in our industry that even knowing or even having all ingredients, we are still not able to cook a very nice soup out of these ingredients and make money with it. And I think the two blocking factors are, the one is what we just said, is it's a different way of monetization. So it's not about to sending the big $10,000 invoice to a customer. It's more sending the 20-cent invoice for a click-through or something. So it's micro payment and not big invoices. That is the one thing. And the other thing is, it's not one event in the year. It could be even a subscription model. It could be even when you go to the exhibitors and say, I give you visibility throughout the entire year. Please subscribe to my event and pay me 100, 200, 300 pounds, plus pay me the money for the stand. Then we are prepared that the exhibitor is shifting money away from the stand, if we have this. But subscription and micropayment are very, very new to our industry. So we need to ask ourselves, which skills are we missing in the industry? Which people are we missing in the industry to harvest these new ways of making money?
And to the
I
point,
think that's it. If I was going to add one more blocker to Tesi, you just trusted. I think the third one is the lack of skills or experience in delivering these
totally
of events.
Totally.
And I
I think
the
it's
lack
not
of
about
skills and
the.
experience. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just going to add that the lack of skills and experience also, as a provider, we have, I think we've been a little bit more in touch with technology than the classic organizer has. And so we've conceived sometimes models that we think are good for monetizing, but then when we hand them to the organizer, sometimes they really struggle to put together, to put things together. And we found that we have to come up with the packages for them sometimes. We have to say, why don't you sell this in this way or that in that way? And then why don't you run what you're trying to sell by us to make sure that, you've understood what you can sell correctly, which, probably shouldn't be the case, but it is at the moment. And so to some extent, there is some responsibility probably on the suppliers being the digital platforms, to probably help drive, these revenue generation opportunities for the organizers. That's certainly what it feels like from our experience. And I don't know how correct that is as a model, but probably it is correct, because effectively we are coming in now much more as a partner in putting on the event than ever before. I think that's one other important factor to consider here, is that digital platforms, we have taken for the moment, we have taken the place of the venues entirely in many cases, and that is a big responsibility. And I guess in terms of revenue generation and other things, that is certainly a factor that comes into play.
And I think I see it as the silver lining of, sorry for the word, the shitstorm that's happening to the industry at the moment, is that we've always been historically very, very, very afraid of trying new models. But now it's the only thing we can do, because, we cannot organize the trade shows like we used to organize them a year ago. So at least now we have more freedom to try things, even though it's difficult because of cash, because of people being on follow, etc., etc. But still, we now have a window of opportunity. I would say the digital people in the organization of the trade show industry to try to push these new models, because that's the only thing we can do at the moment.
Yeah. So I think we have to actually wrap up the session, running out of time very quickly here. So I would love to get a takeaway from each one of you, and I'll put my takeaway last. So maybe Stephan, Stuart, and then Tesi in that order. If you could just provide one takeaway, what do you think is the key thing for being able to generate revenue in this tough environment that we're in now?
I think that if I have to put it in one sentence, is that we cannot rely anymore on serendipity in our events. We have to be able to make those journeys to drive people to the right place and actually generate interesting leads for our customers. It will not happen by chance like it used to do on a physical trade show.
Stuart?
And I think mine, following on from that, saying it in a slightly different way, it's around focus. Be focused on what the objectives of our exhibitors or our partners are, what the objectives of the attendees are, and ensuring we are laser focused on delivering the right format, the right mix of content to achieve those objectives.
Okay, two takeaways from my side. First of all, Stephan can't fix my computer. I'm super disappointed about that. Takeaway number two is create a targeted journey which serves the motivation of your exhibitor, but then really think about what is a blocking factor in my organization that I haven't done it so far, and fix a blocking factor. If it's the right skills, or if it's doing some subscription model or micropayment, investigate it and fix a blocking factor.
Yeah, it says I want. It doesn't say I can't.
Okay, here we go.
Exactly. So for me, I would say that the takeaway for me, we touched on here, would be that it's very worthwhile thinking about how you can kind of generate revenue in the extended tail, the before and after tails of the event. I think as we hopefully shift into the hybrid world rather than pure online, the good things of what we obtained during COVID will remain, and we will be able to still have a compelling argument for why exhibitors and visitors come back to your event platform. Either it's a subscription model, or you give them content all the way around, or some of the other things that we're, I think, still together developing. But I think it's worth very much thinking about how do you generate revenue for value that you give back to the exhibitors while that's going on before and after what used to be just the 3 or 4 days of the show running, essentially. That would be mine. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Stephan. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Tesi. It's been a wonderful chat, and hopefully something interesting for every one of us and for our audience to take away home. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.